My name is Shalma,
And I'm Dan.
and together we're creating Why This Universe, a podcast dedicated to answering your questions about the weirdest, the biggest, and the newest ideas in physics. So I thought it would be nice to first share a little more about us. So I'm 21 years old, and I grew up in New York City. My parents are both writers of some sort, so I'm the first physicist in the family, and I'm excited to be returning to New York this fall to pursue my PhD in physics at NYU. I'll be in the Department of Cosmology and Particle Physics, and I'm super excited.
So I'm Dan Hooper. I grew up in rural Minnesota. I wasn't exposed to a lot of big ideas about science or the universe there, but I was a curious guy and I went off to college and discovered physics there. Got excited about it. Went to study it more at the University of Wisconsin, did some postdoc stints here and there, and wound up at the University of Chicago, where I teach astronomy and astrophysics. I'm also a staff scientist at the Fermi National Accelerator Lab just outside of Chicago. I study things like cosmology, particle physics, high energy particles, and how they're produced and propagate through the universe, all sorts of wild and exciting ideas about what our universe is and how it came to be that way.
Yeah, and Dan and I met when I was an undergrad at University of Chicago. He was my research advisor and thesis advisor, and we did research together. And that was my first introduction to this kind of world of cosmology and particle physics and this kind of physics that I'm interested in pursuing now in graduate school. And I don't know about you, Dan, but for me, my initial interest in physics didn't actually peak in school in any classes I took. I feel like if I first um, saw physics just in my high school physics class, I wouldn't necessarily have latched onto it. It was actually just through physics books, popular physics books, and maybe even documentaries where I really realized how interesting these ideas were, and that's what made me decide to study physics.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't excited about physics in high school or really any other kind of science. I had I had a physics class in high school, but it was all like rolling things down inclined planes and how simple circuits worked and stuff. These are not the kind of exciting ideas that got me into physics, really. I went off to college. I thought I was going to be a music student, but I wound up being a physics student when I learned about ideas like relativity and quantum mechanics and cosmology and even a little bit of modern stuff like dark matter. That was the stuff that really hooked me and made me want to dig deeper. And it was in college that I discovered all the sorts of books you were just talking about. I read the Stephen Hawking stuff. I read a bunch of Paul Davies, who I was really excited about. I read Kip Thorne's Black Holes and Time Warps. I mean, these books just blew my mind, and just the fact that the universe wasn't the way our intuition led us to expect was just so profound to me. And I've continued to be excited about these ideas to this day.
Yeah, so I feel like this is, at least for me, making Why This Universe is a way to give back in kind of that direction and introduce a new way that anyone who finds themselves interested to have access to and learn more about these ideas in physics. Also, I think most of the things that we're going to cover in this podcast, they're not even taught in like an undergrad college physics curriculum.
Even a lot of people with PhDs in physics haven't encountered a lot of these ideas. Physics is a big landscape of ideas. And most physicists are really hyper specialized, and they spend their whole lives studying one little corner of this discipline. I think somebody could, over some long period of time, listen to podcasts like Why This Universe and get exposed to a lot of ideas they haven't seen before.
Even if you're a professional physicist, you can learn about physics ideas that you haven't heard before. If you've never taken a physics class, I think that this will still be accessible introduction to these big ideas. And if you're somewhere in between, if you're a student, I think this is also like a perfect way to learn more.
The only thing you really need to appreciate this podcast is a healthy dose of intellectual curiosity. You don't have to be a physicist or a physics student. You just have to be somebody who wants to learn about these sorts of ideas, and we hope to make it pretty accessible. Whether you're a PhD holding physics professor or maybe a high school student thinking they might want to learn more about the universe.
Yeah, and I'm excited also to learn more as we're making this and as we're exploring new topics.
Me too.
Great. So I hope everyone listening tunes into our first episode and enjoys the podcast as much as we enjoy making it.